Ethan Cole stood at the center of the grand ballroom, his confident smile reflecting perfectly under the golden chandeliers above. The gala was the most important event of the year, attended by the richest investors, influential leaders, and well-known faces from across the city. Crystal glasses sparkled, soft music floated through the air, and every detail of the evening spoke of wealth, power, and success. Beside him stood Lena Rivers, glowing under the attention of the crowd. Her elegant gown shimmered with every step she took, and her smile was carefully practiced yet captivating. She carried herself like she belonged there, like she had always been part of this world. And tonight, she was at the center of it. Ethan gently placed a hand around Lena's waist as he guided her toward the stage. The room slowly quieted as people turned their attention toward them. Cameras flashed. Conversations faded. All eyes were now fixed on the couple who seemed to represent success and perfection. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ethan began, his voice smooth and confident. "Tonight is not just about business achievements, but also about new beginnings." He paused, glancing at Lena with a proud smile. She looked up at him, her expression soft and full of admiration. "There are people who walk into your life and change everything," he continued. "People who inspire you to move forward, to dream bigger, and to leave the past behind." A few guests exchanged knowing looks, their smiles widening as they understood the meaning behind his words. Ethan tightened his hold slightly, his tone becoming more personal. "Lena has been that person for me. She represents the future, a future I am proud to embrace." A wave of applause filled the room. Some guests nodded approvingly, others whispered quietly, but most seemed impressed. To them, Ethan and Lena were the perfect couple. Beautiful, powerful, and destined for something even greater. Lena's eyes sparkled as she accepted the admiration. This was the moment she had dreamed of. Standing beside Ethan, being recognized, being seen. Everything felt exactly as it should be. But just as the applause began to settle, something unexpected happened. The large ballroom doors at the far end slowly creaked open. At first, no one paid much attention. But then, one by one, heads began to turn. A woman stepped inside. She moved with calm, steady grace, her presence quiet yet impossible to ignore. She wore a simple but elegant dress, her posture straight, her expression composed. There was no hesitation in her steps, no uncertainty in her eyes. The sound in the room began to fade. Whispers died mid-sentence. Glasses paused halfway to lips. Even the soft music seemed distant. Ethan's voice cut off completely. His eyes locked onto the woman at the entrance. For the first time that night, his confidence faltered. Lena felt the shift instantly. She followed his gaze, her smile slowly fading as she tried to understand what was happening. The woman continued walking forward, each step echoing in the sudden silence of the ballroom. No one spoke. No one moved. And in that heavy, breathless moment, it became clear to everyone present. Something big was about to happen. Years before the shining lights of the gala, before the applause and admiration, Ethan Cole had lived a very different life, one far from luxury and recognition. Back then, he had only one thing to his name: determination. And beside him, through every struggle, stood Clara. Clara Cole was not loud or attention-seeking. She was calm, thoughtful, and quietly strong. When Ethan had nothing, no success, no connections, no guarantee of a future, she believed in him. She worked long hours, managed their small home, and supported his ambitions without complaint. When his plans failed, she encouraged him to try again. When he doubted himself, she reminded him of his potential. She was his foundation. In those early years, Ethan often promised her, "One day, I'll give you everything you deserve." And Clara would simply smile, never asking for anything in return. But success has a way of changing people. As Ethan's business slowly grew, so did his confidence. The small victories turned into major achievements. The man who once struggled to be noticed was now being invited into powerful circles. His name began to carry weight, and with it came admiration, attention, and temptation. At first, the changes were small. Late nights at work became more frequent. Important meetings replaced quiet dinners. His tone became sharper, his patience thinner. Clara noticed, but she said nothing. She believed it was just pressure, just a phase. But it wasn't. Ethan began to enjoy the attention that came with his success. The compliments, the admiration, it fed his ego. He no longer looked at Clara the same way. To him, she became a reminder of a past he was trying to leave behind. And then, Lena entered his life. She was everything Clara was not: bold, glamorous, and deeply connected to the world Ethan now admired. She understood his new lifestyle, spoke his language, and fit perfectly into the image he wanted to present. What began as casual meetings quickly turned into something more. The affair was not sudden, it grew quietly, hidden behind excuses and late nights. But over time, it became impossible to ignore. Clara saw the signs. The distance in his eyes. The unfamiliar scent on his clothes. The way he avoided her questions. Still, she never created a scene. She never begged. She never fought for attention. Instead, she slowly stepped back. Room by room, moment by moment, she disappeared from his life. And Ethan let her. To the outside world, Clara faded into silence. People stopped mentioning her name. Some assumed she had left. Others believed she was simply not strong enough to hold on to a man like Ethan Cole. Society. The silence in the ballroom grew heavier with every step the woman took. At first, people simply stared, trying to understand why her presence felt so powerful. But then, recognition began to spread, slowly, like a ripple through still water. "It can't be," someone whispered. "Is that Clara?" The name moved from one guest to another, soft at first, then louder, filled with disbelief. Clara Cole. The forgotten wife. The woman everyone thought had quietly disappeared. But the woman walking across the polished floor now was nothing like the one they remembered. Clara's presence was calm yet commanding. Her dress was simple, but it carried an elegance that didn't need to shout for attention. Her posture was straight, her expression composed, her eyes steady and unreadable. There was no sign of weakness, no trace of the quiet woman who had once stood in Ethan's shadow. She had changed. No, she had transformed. On the stage, Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. His confident expression cracked for the first time that night. His hand slowly slipped away from Lena's waist, as if even that small gesture now felt uncertain. "Clara," he breathed, barely able to say her name. Beside him, Lena's smile faded completely. Her fingers tightened around her clutch as she watched Clara approach. There was something deeply unsettling about the way Clara moved, calm, controlled, as if she belonged there more than anyone else in the room. For the first time that evening, Lena felt out of place. Clara didn't rush. She didn't hesitate. Each step she took echoed softly, yet seemed louder than the music that had once filled the room. The crowd instinctively shifted, creating a path for her without being asked. No one dared to stop her. No one dared to speak. She reached the front of the stage and paused for just a moment, her gaze lifting to meet Ethan's. There was no anger in her eyes. No sadness. Only quiet strength. The whispers around the room grew louder now, filled with shock and curiosity. The forgotten wife had returned. And she was no longer someone to ignore. Clara stepped onto the stage with quiet confidence, her presence alone commanding more attention than any speech that had been given that night. She didn't rush. She didn't look at the crowd for approval. Her eyes remained fixed on Ethan. For a brief moment, no one spoke. Then, in a calm and steady voice, Clara broke the silence. "Good evening," she said, her tone polite but firm. "I apologize for the interruption, but I believe this is a moment that requires truth." A wave of unease passed through the audience. Ethan swallowed hard, his usual confidence nowhere to be found. Clara continued, her gaze never leaving him. "For those who may not remember me, my name is Clara Cole." A soft murmur spread across the room. "I am," she added, with quiet clarity, "still Ethan Cole's legal wife." The words landed heavily. Lena's face lost its color. Her eyes moved quickly toward Ethan, searching for denial, for something, anything, but he said nothing. Clara took a small step forward. "I stood beside Ethan when he had nothing," she said. "When there were no investors, no grand events, no applause. I believed in him when no one else did. Her voice remained steady, but every word carried weight. I supported him, trusted him, and in return, I was slowly pushed aside. A pause. He didn't lose me, Clara said softly. He chose to replace me. The room was completely silent now. Ethan lowered his gaze, unable to meet her eyes. But Clara wasn't finished. She turned slightly, now addressing the audience as well. Tonight, you are all here to celebrate success, she continued. A company built on vision, effort, and growth. Her lips curved into the faintest, controlled smile. But what many of you don't know is that this success was never his alone. The tension in the room tightened. Clara reached into her small clutch and calmly pulled out a set of documents. She didn't wave them dramatically, she simply held them with quiet certainty. I remained silent for a long time, she said. Not because I was weak, but because I was preparing. She lifted her chin slightly. I am the majority shareholder of this company. The words hit like a shockwave. Gasps echoed across the ballroom. Some guests leaned forward, others exchanged stunned looks. A few executives in the room shifted uncomfortably, already aware of the truth she had just revealed. This gala, Clara continued, her voice unwavering, this success, this entire empire, is under my authority. Ethan's face went pale. The ground beneath his confidence seemed to disappear in an instant. The man who had stood so proudly moments ago now looked completely exposed. Lena slowly stepped back, her expression filled with disbelief. Everything she had believed, the power, the future, the image, began to crumble around her. Clara lowered the document slightly, her gaze calm but unbreakable. And tonight, she said, the truth finally stands where it always belonged. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the atmosphere in the ballroom began to shift. The admiration that had once surrounded Lena faded, replaced by quiet judgment and distance. Guests who had been smiling at her moments ago now avoided her gaze. Their attention, no, their respect, had moved entirely to Clara. Whispers filled the room again, but this time they carried a different tone. Clara stood calmly at the center of it all, untouched by the noise, her composure unshaken. Ethan finally stepped forward, his voice unsteady. Clara, listen, we can talk about this. This isn't the right place. There was never a right place for betrayal, Clara interrupted gently, her tone still calm, but firm enough to stop him. He hesitated, clearly searching for words he no longer had. I made mistakes, he said, his voice lowering. But we can fix this. We can start over. Clara looked at him for a long second, not with anger, not with pain, but with clarity. No, Ethan, she replied softly. You made choices. And now, you will live with them. The finality in her voice left no room for argument. She turned slightly, addressing not just Ethan, but the room as a whole. As of tonight, she announced, I will be taking full control of the company's operations. Effective immediately, Ethan Cole will no longer hold any decision-making authority. A quiet gasp moved through the crowd again, but this time it was mixed with understanding. It felt deserved. Ethan's shoulders dropped, the weight of reality finally settling on him. He said nothing more. Behind him, Lena stood frozen, her confidence completely gone. The admiration she once enjoyed had turned into silent embarrassment. Without a word, she stepped back further, then quietly turned and walked away, her heels echoing faintly as she disappeared into the crowd. No one stopped her. No one followed. Clara watched none of it. Her focus remained forward. After a brief pause, she spoke one final time. Success built without loyalty is fragile, she said. And respect earned through truth will always outlast illusion. Her words settled deeply into the room. Then, without waiting for applause or approval, Clara stepped down from the stage. She walked the same path she had entered, calm, steady, and completely in control. But this time, the silence that followed her was not shock. It was respect. By the time she reached the doors, she paused for only a second, taking a quiet breath. Not of relief, but of closure. Then she walked out, leaving everything behind that no longer belonged in her life. Outside, The night air felt different. Lighter. Clearer. Clara didn't look back. She didn't need to. Because her story was no longer about what she had lost, but about everything she had become. Strong. Independent. Respected. And in that quiet strength, she proved a truth few ever forget. True strength is silent, but when it finally reveals itself, it changes everything.